We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
From ESPN's Pod Center, this is NBA Lockdown.
Welcome into the latest NBA Lockdown podcast. We're taping this on Tuesday, April 28th. I am Doug Kezirian. We'll be joined shortly by Amin Elhassan. We'll get to the Western Conference in a bit, talk about the Portland Trail Blazers staving off the sweep and preventing NBA history, and also what that means for the future of LaMarcus Aldridge, who will be a free agent this summer. But we're going to start by talking about the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee Bucks not going away quietly. Either are the Brooklyn Nets. The home team has won every game so far in that series. The 1-8 matchup is now 2-2. But we start with news that's developing throughout the afternoon here on the East Coast. Cavs general manager David Griffin said that it is highly unlikely that Kevin Love plays at all the rest of the playoffs. He had already been ruled out yesterday for the second round, and even if the Cavs do keep going, they're going to have to do it without Kevin Love. Amin, we kind of suspected this, and I feel for the city of Cleveland, given it's over 50 years without a pro championship, and there's been all those allegations of being a cursed city with the drive, the fumble, Game 7 of the World Series against Edgar Renteria, whatever it may be. This is another big blow for the city of Cleveland and their sports teams.
Yeah, it's a crushing blow, and the full effect may not be felt for several rounds, because I still think they have enough talent to beat the Bulls, and they got enough talent to win the Eastern Conference Finals. But whoever they face out of that West, they desperately needed Love's spacing ability, his rebounding, his passing. All these things are even though we've seen a watered-down Kevin Love this year, he's still really good at those things and demands respect. And without that, I think the big issue becomes, sure, you can play LeBron at the 4, but then that means you got a bunch of guys who otherwise wouldn't be playing who are going to be getting in the games. Guys like James Jones and Mike Miller, or maybe even a Shawn Marion. And I just don't know that can stand up to the mighty, mighty Western Conference winner.
We talked about it with Tony Cartagena yesterday of ESPN Radio in Cleveland. And, look, I fell victim to the narrative. Oh, Kevin Love hasn't been the ideal fit. And he corrected me, and justly. He still averaged 16 and 10 this year. And there's growing pains with any time you assemble new players. We learned that in 2010 with LeBron and the Miami Heat. So it took some time. And there were some times where the fourth quarter he sat. So, yes, maybe not an ideal fit, but they worked it out, and they're a better team with Kevin Love. Yes, 16 and 10, and those are good stats, especially when LeBron and Kyrie have the ball so often. Even J.R. Smith can chuck double-digit three-point attempts. So it's a huge blow, and I'm not even sure they can get past the Bulls. It's certainly going to be more competitive. They do have home court, and if they do end up meeting the Hawks, I think they're going to be better off facing the Hawks than they are the Bulls. I think Chicago's going to be much more difficult of an opponent. But I definitely think this is he could maybe come back for the finals if they get there. Who knows? He may have to undergo surgery. This is all sort of new, and the timing of this is really interesting because he can opt out this summer, become a free agent. Look what the Cavs gave up for him. The number 1 overall pick. Yes, Anthony Bennett as well, but Andrew Wiggins, who will likely be Rookie of the Year. So this is just, I think, devastating, really, for Cleveland. If they don't win the title this year, it's going to be a giant what-if.
Yeah, here's the other scenario, by the way, and this is all developing news, so we're finding this out right as we're recording this podcast. But the other thing is, you say, if you're the Cavs, it makes sense to say he's out for the playoffs. Because then you avoid the question every day. How far away are you now? Are you 65%? Are you 50%? Remember the Jeremy Lin thing a couple of years ago where they just kept asking what his percentage was? and it was just a huge, huge distraction. Same thing with Derrick Rose. Is he back? Is he not back? Is he going to come back? What if the playoffs start today? What if they win a series? All of these questions, you can avoid them when you say he's out for the playoffs. And then if he can miraculously heal, if they don't have to go the surgical route, if he can rehab and get better and come back, let's say in the conference finals or even the NBA finals, hey, you just got yourself some gravy. I kind of think of, if you remember, Jameer Nelson in 2009. Remember, he got hurt around the trade deadline, and he was ruled out for the year. And so they went and traded for Rafer Alston. And then when they got to the finals, Jameer came back. Now, obviously, it didn't help him, but it's the same sort of thing. If you can quell all that ridiculous question asking on a daily basis, maybe that gives your team a little bit more focus and a cocoon to operate in until he's ready to come back.
And especially because the spotlight already is so big on that team. It's not like they're only going to have a couple reporters following them.
Right.
Everyone's following, so they're going to have that much more media attention. LeBron's done a nice job, by the way. I think that's getting noticed. Is throughout the course of the season, he took a lot of blame on himself. He took a lot of the focus, talked about this, talked about that, and took really pressure off David Blatt. No, you're squirming there?
I don't think he did that. I think he did the opposite. He did a lot of finger pointing with his teammates early before those trades.
Yeah,
after
that's
the
fair.
trades.
That's fair.
He did. Remember the whole David Blatt, hey, it's important for us to get the 2 seed, and LeBron said, it's not important at all for us to get the 2 seed.
Well, he was put on the spot there. I think he did a nice job of massaging situations early on, but you're right, he definitely also...
He wasn't put on the spot. He wasn't put on the spot because they said, LeBron, Coach Blatt talked about how important it is for you guys to get the 2. Like, right then, as soon as Coach Blatt said, you say, well, if Coach said that, then, that's our mindset. You don't contradict what the coach said. And he knew because they just told him that's what the coach said. So,
well, look, we're splitting hairs on something that doesn't, mean a ton, but it wasn't a big deal. It was like, what we covered it for a few hours that day, and then we were on to something else. So, I was just talking.
I'm just saying he didn't distract. He did not dissuade. He did not massage. He didn't do what Paul Pierce did. Paul Pierce drew attention away from his teammates, from his coach, and put it on himself. LeBron didn't do that all year long. He basically just passed it around and made it worse.
All right, let's switch gears now to the teams that actually played last night. Couple really good games in the Eastern Conference. Milwaukee Bucks looked like they were on the verge of being swept. Now we have a series. It's 3-2. Pau Gasol trying to pinpoint what exactly has gone wrong for the Bullies in the last 2 games.
But we kind of done it to ourselves. So now we have a very difficult challenge in front of us. Now they have momentum, they have confidence, and they're going home to force Game 7. So let's see how we play on Game 6, how we react to this situation as a team.
Yes and no, pal. You've done it to yourself, but give the Bucks some credit. I mean, it's not like the first 3 games of the series that the Bulls won were exactly necessarily one-sided. This has been a tight series throughout, even when it was 3-0 Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the score, the final scores of those last 3 games are probably a little misleading. You didn't watch the games. The Bucks definitely competed. They're long, they're athletic, they defend very well. And it's just their offense, it has to come in spurts for them when O.J. Mayo's feeling it, when they can get easy stuff out of transition, when Jared Dudley's knocking down perimeter shots. And what's happened the last 2 games is that's exactly what's happened for the Bucks. But here's the other thing I got to say. George Sedano, I was on his show yesterday, and he was saying this thing was a wrap. He's already doing a look ahead to Chicago and Cleveland. I said, not so fast, George. Not so fast, because there's some good people north on 94 who would beg to differ with your assertion. And George kind of laughed it off, and I just want to say right now. Who's laughing now, George?
Yeah, exactly.
Now?
Well,
Hashtag hate hard.
There you go. Nick Friedel covers the Bulls for ESPN Chicago, and he sees something with this Bulls squad.
Because it's the Bulls and because they have Derrick Rose back and because of the championship expectations of this team, that's what everybody around the league's wondering right now. Why is it that they can't find that extra gear that they've had in years past? And having been around these guys for 5 years, Freddie, I think the answer for them is they don't have one right now. And that is a tough reality for a proud group.
That's Nick Friedel with the Freddie Coleman Show last night on ESPN Radio. I found this crazy. Since the Michael Jordan era in Chicago, the Bulls have only clinched a series once at home. So maybe they're just better taking care of business in Milwaukee. The Bucks aren't exactly going to roll over. So, what do you think?
By the way,
I'd
like to point out.
Yes.
I'd like to point out, since the Michael Jordan era, basically all those clinching games have happened probably in the last less than 10 years, 8 years.
Right.
since like 2007.
So there was a
That's
decade
crazy.
of an ineptitude, and then but seriously, even that Bulls squad that was a 1 seed, right?
Yep.
And then even the other Bulls teams have been competitive. They lost Derrick Rose, but they still won a couple rounds, and they've never done it at home. They've done it once at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think this team is the chronic overachiever, right? And now we're kind of seeing them. They've reached their limit. There's no more overachieving you can do when you are the favorite in the series. When you have the talent advantage, how do you overachieve? And what we're seeing now is them just struggling to close out a team that is now playing the role that Chicago is familiar with. Because now the Bucks, the role reversal has completed. The Bucks are now what the Bulls used to be, a scrappy team, a defense-first team, a team that doesn't know where their offense is going to come from night to night, but knows they're going to be in it every game because they are going to make life as uncomfortable as possible. So it is kind of weird to see the Bulls basically looking at a younger version of themselves and having issues with that.
I think this Bucks squad is more than just frisky and confidence. I mean, they probably think they're better than the Bulls, given how the first 3 games went in this series. And, it's nice when you have 2 and 3 days rest between games, but now they're going every other day. They have travel. Now, they're only about 90 minutes apart. But the every other day thing on this Bulls squad, I'm not so confident in the Chicago finishing things off. Now, look, I'm going to say the same about Dallas and Houston and all that. One of these I'm going to be right, and most of them I'm going to be wrong. But I'm just not so confident this is a walk in the park for Chicago. And like you said, not so fast last night.
Right, and, Kevin Pelton wrote about that, the effect of days of rest on
D. Rose.
On D. Rose, and with 2 days of rest, he's been incredible. And that's not just in the playoffs, but that's been all season long he's been like that. His efficiency is way higher on his field goal percentage, on his three-point percentage. He's getting to the free throw line way more frequently, which indicates an aggressiveness, going to the hole. All that, of course, in Kevin Pelton's great piece on Insider. So we saw that all throughout the year, and we've seen it in the playoffs. Game 1, Game 3, they had 2 days of rest. He looked incredible. Game 2, Game 4, Game 5, 1 day of rest, not so incredible.
So the Bulls had won 9 straight games at home dating back to the regular season, but the Bucks do it, get it done, and extend it to Game 6. Brooklyn Nets. Okay, now. All right. We got ourselves a series. Atlanta Hawks. I think it was entering. They're now 9-10, if I'm not mistaken, in their last 19 games. Now, I know they rested sometimes down the stretch of the regular season, but still much different than the team that won, 17 straight throughout the course of December and January. So what do you make of Darren Williams' resurgence and the Brooklyn Nets with every home team winning the first 4 games so far?
Well, Darren, the way Darren played last night, if you want to talk about the most shocking, unexpected thing of the 2015 playoffs, it has to be Darren Williams is back. He went away, but he's officially back. I didn't see this coming. I take that back. It's the second most shocking thing. The first most shocking thing has to be Austin Rivers playing like an NBA player. That's the most shocking thing that I never could have seen. But Darren Williams' resurgence is a close second. I mean, Kenny Smith said this last night, that left-to-right crossover. That used to be one of the best in the league. Because he's so big and powerful. When he plants, he's got so much torque when he's going from one side to the other. He lost. I mean, we say it figuratively, but DeMar Carroll was lost on that crossover.
He was out in,
Yeah, he was in Flushing, Queens or something like that. He was not in the borough of Brooklyn by the end of that crossover.
Hashtag hate hard.
And so, that's been shocking. And I got to admit, it changes the complexion of the series because we know Brook Lopez has been great the whole time. And we kind of figured he would because we talked about the Hawks' issues with players with size, the Hawks' issues protecting the defensive glass. It just makes sense that Brook Lopez is having the kind of series he's having. But for Darren to be doing what he's doing now, everyone's, stop the presses. It's not just that the Hawks may have to fight for this one. I'm a little concerned. I hate to say it off of, I don't want to be the guy who lives in the moment, but, if Darren Williams plays well, and by the way, he's played well in other games, it just hasn't been offensively. He's defended very well. He's gotten guys involved. He's done a good job on the glass. He just hasn't been there offensively. But last night the offense came back.
Well, and this just reinforces what I was so upset with at the end of the regular season is why the Celtics didn't tank and try to get to the 8th seed. They had no chance against the Cavs. Now, I like how they play. They played hard, played tough, whatever. But they had a puncher's chance against the Hawks. Everyone did. And I was very annoyed for Celtics fans. Like, I don't care. I'm a Lakers fan. But this just proves that you should have been trying to be the 8th seed instead of the 7th seed.
But I don't like that, especially with a young team. You don't want to get them into the habit of, fearing opponents, because that's what they would have done. I think they actually got more utility out of getting swept by the Cavs. And everyone's like, oh, that's crazy. But it's not, because now those guys they competed 4 games. They didn't get it handed to them. They made the Cavs fight. They made the Cavs get frustrated enough to start throwing blows and illegal picks and whatnot. And for a young Celtics team that is learning how to win and learning how to compete, that lesson is far more useful than, we tanked so that we wouldn't have played the fearful, the fearsome Cavs to play a team that we have a better chance of beating.
I agree that they got all of that out of that Cavs series, and Celtics fans should be happy with what they can sort of take away from that. But they could have got 90% of that from the Hawks, and also tie game, 4 minutes to go, and actually eke out a playoff win, and then get a different kind of utility out of that. So I agree with you that there was a lot of positives from getting swept there.
But I think,
I think look at the Nets. Look at the Nets now. Look at the Nets right now.
The Nets are a vet team, though. The Nets are a vet team, though. I think for the Celtics, the message is the same: is that there are people you got to be scared of. And I think what Jay Crowder said, I believe between Game 3 and Game 4, he said, there's no one on that roster we're scared of. I think that's what you want moving forward. You want that, hey, we'll play against the 92 Dream Team, and we'll give them a fight. You want that spirit. You don't want, we don't go that way. That way is dangerous. Let's go this way. This way seems to be safer, and we might have a progression to the second round. I don't want my team thinking that way if they're young guys. If we got vets, if you're the Nets, like, this is it anyway, it's not going to get better from here, sure, you can start doing those kind of circuitous routes. But for a young team, that you want them to learn how to grow, how to get better, how to compete, how to be winners, and eventually one day champions. I don't think the lesson of, we want to avoid them is the one that you want to teach them.
All right,
and they didn't. And they didn't avoid. They went right into it. And sure, they got swept, but all sweeps are not created equal. Everyone knows that the Cavs have to fight hard to win those 4 games.
The Hawks did get the Nets, and now we're 2-2, so now it's a best-of-3 series. Who do you like coming out of this one?
Man, I still got the Hawks, man. I know I just puffed up the Nets there a second ago, but I took a deep breath and thought about it. I said, I still have the Hawks. I think they're the superior team. They're the better team. And I don't know if Darren Williams can have flashback night 3 more times. And that's the thing. So I'm going with the Hawks, but again, this goes back to what I said before the series started. Thabo Sefolosha is ridiculously important to this team, and we're just glossing over his absence. Every time we say, they haven't played well in the last few games, or every time we say, they look mortal, we're just glossing over the fact that they're missing one of their most important cogs.
If you want to crown them, then crown them.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Denny Green.
Okay, so we have the Cavs in the second round without Kevin Love, at least for the second round. J.R. Smith suspended the first 2 games. We have the Bulls up 3-2, maybe limping to the second round, and the Hawks tied with the 8th seed Brooklyn Nets. So if you want to crown someone in the Eastern Conference, right now, who would you pick to come out of the East?
Oh, to come out of the East? I thought you were getting ready to do the drum roll to do the Wizards thing over my head again. We got to crown the Wizards because they took care of business.
And by the way, the Wizards, you're right, all sweeps aren't created equal, waxed the Raptors, so they're in the second round. So with all the variables, like I said, Love, the 2-2, and the Atlanta-Brooklyn, who are you taking to win the East right now?
I got to go Cavs. LeBron is still LeBron, and even though their road got a lot tougher in the second round, I don't think Chicago has shown me anything to make me believe that the Cavs can't defeat them It's not going to be easy, but I still pick the Cavs to win that. And the other bracket, I think we're just proving how useless it is. If the Hawks are having problems with the Nets and the Wizards are looking like world beaters, and we all know that side of the bracket isn't worth mentioning.
Yeah, I agree. It's the Cavs, but I'm not exactly coming off the top rope and heading to the sports book to lay down the lumber on them. It's a shaky pick of the Cavs. All right.
I like that.
Speaking of sweeps, Blazers refusing to lay down and die. They prevented NBA history. We'll explain what that is and how much impact will the extension of this series have on the rest of the postseason and even beyond with LaMarcus Aldridge. That's in 1 minute on the NBA Lockdown Podcast.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
We've got serious problems right now with C.J. McCollum, and he is getting to the rim on us just over and over and over. He had another good game tonight, and we've got to do a better job of keeping in front of, if it depends which, philosophy you like to go with. Okay, if LaMarcus and Damian get 80, then do they have, can you live with that? We can't live with that. We've got to do a better job on C.J. McCollum.
That was Memphis Grizzlies coach Dave Yeager as we welcome you back into the NBA Lockdown Podcast. I'm Doug Kezirian, joined again by Amin Elhassan. All right, they have serious problems maybe with McCollum, but they're in complete control of this series as Memphis, up 3-1, unable to finish off the sweep. By the way, it would have been the first time in NBA playoff history, best of 5 or best of 7 series, that we saw both 4-5 matchups end in sweeps. Of course, the Wizards took care of the Raptors, and Memphis nearly swept the Blazers, but they didn't. C.J. McCollum, big 3, by the way. I was blown away by his quick release. The Yeager was talking about his attack in the rim, but he also had a quick release on that huge 3 late in the game last night.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was huge for them. And actually in Game 3, I was talking about it. I said, if I'm the Blazers, I'm giving less minutes to Aaron Aflalo, who doesn't look 100% and is infatuated with the worst kind of shot sometimes. And I give more minutes to C.J. McCollum because he can attack off the dribble, because he's quick and he's a fairly decent three-point shooter. And, he's done all of those things in this series. When given the opportunity, and it was nice to see him close out the game yesterday.
So Memphis with Mike Conley out, and we don't really know when he'll return with that facial surgery. I mean, Russell Westbrook only missed a game, but he's also Russell Westbrook. The big thing here that has been written about a little bit, and assume the Grizzlies take care of business at home at the Grindhouse, is what does this mean for the free agency of LaMarcus Aldridge? I mean, you've been in front offices before. You know how this weighs on a front office. Aldridge, 3 months ago, if you would have asked me, I would have laughed at the idea of his leaving. But he's a Texas native. George Sedano and I talked about this briefly on the podcast yesterday is, hey, the Mavericks are going to come after him. The Spurs are going to come after him. Even Houston could get creative like Daryl Morey always does and make a run for him. We know he wanted Chris Bosh. This is another 4-man that could really make an impact for this roster. So what do you see? How do you see this all unfolding with LaMarcus Aldridge and the free agency, assuming the Blazers lose Game 5?
Yeah, it's tough, man. My whole thing has been, if I'm in LaMarcus Aldridge's camp, I'm telling him, you don't know how good you got it. You're on a good team, a very good team. Last year, we talked about they didn't have a bench. This year, they greatly upgraded the bench, but they had injuries to their starting lineup, and that kind of sagged them down. This is a good team in a city where he's respected and loved, and again, they've got an opportunity to win every night out, and he's going to leave that behind for what? For more fame? For
a better chance to win a title. A better chance to win a title.
But to me, when you say better chance to win a title and you move to another Western Conference team, you're not saying much. It really isn't. Even if he goes to the Spurs,
well,
I really don't think.
It depends on the team, right?
I don't know. And the West has gotten so saturated that I think it does. At some point, guys, you're not as effective when you're playing 20 minutes or 25 minutes if you're LaMarcus Aldridge, right? At some point, having an all-star team doesn't make your team better because you're not able to fully glean the benefits of having all these great players, And so I look at the West and I say, if you're LaMarcus Aldridge, you're telling me you want to leave for a better chance for a championship? Go East, young man. Go to the Hawks.
Bill Simmons talked about this on a podcast. He's like, what's a better chance? What the Portland brings back, or you give the Knicks with Carmelo, another free agent, a top pick, a top 2 or 3 pick, maybe 1 pick, and maybe a couple other reserves in the Eastern Conference. What gives you a better chance?
I think he's saying Portland. Like the Knicks are not going. Here's the thing. This is.
I'm not saying I think it should happen.
I know.
It's been brought up.
I know. This is my advice to fans who think that way. You can't have a great or a championship contending. I'm not even going to say championship caliber. Just championship contending team if your organization is run by chaos and anarchy. I know fantasy basketball says, if I add this and I pick this and I draft this guy and I sign this guy, sure, it's not going to work. Why? Because the team is mismanaged and run awfully. And that starts in the owner's box and works its way down. The teams that are good, that are in this, they are well-run teams. And unless you have like a transcendent player like LeBron James, and I think we can agree there's only one LeBron James in the league right now, and maybe you could expand that a little bit more and say Anthony Davis in a couple of years. But unless you got that kind of talent, no matter what, I can overcome all things and all obstacles, even internally. It just doesn't work. So for LaMarcus Aldridge to go to the Knicks, that would be silly. Celtics, maybe that I would co-sign as a better chance, quote unquote, not because the Celtics would be better than the Blazers are now, but because they're in the East. Another team to look at would be the Cavs. If this Kevin Love thing doesn't work out, if he ends up saying, guys, thanks, but I think I want to be somewhere else where I can be a bigger part of the offense, maybe that's a sign and trade you work out with Cleveland. We bring Kevin Love, the native son of Oregon, home. He'll definitely have a bigger role in Portland, playing alongside of Dame Lillard. And then LaMarcus Aldridge maybe could be that missing piece for the Cavs, and that would be something where you could say, oh yeah, that's a much better chance of winning a championship than playing in Portland. But the Knicks, I just can't co-sign that at all.
All right, well, forget the Knicks for a sec. Take us inside the front office right now. You've been there. How stressed are they even before last night? Like, if we get swept, are they aware of the magnitude of maybe just one win in the series, how that could affect Aldridge's feelings?
Now, I think losing in the first round, regardless if they get swept or they lose in 7, I think this has been a concern for them. I don't even want to say losing in the first round, to be honest. This has been a concern for them for quite some time this year because, Aldridge is kind of intimated. You said it last year. This guy was talking about, I want to stay here forever, and I'd sign an extension right now if it made sense for me financially because, of course, the NBA CBA rules make it so that signing an extension is not in your favor as a player. You'd rather wait till free agency and then sign a new deal. And then this year, it's kind of like, we don't know. We have to weigh options. He's using all this kind of language that a year ago was not operative at all. So, I think the Blazers have been concerned. And I think if you're the Blazers, first of all, you're cooking up one hell of a please stay in Portland plan. That includes what type of free agents we're going to go after because, of course, Portland's got a bunch of free agents beyond Aldridge. And then where this team's going to go over the next couple of years. And then, also like the whole, we're going to retire your jersey one day, and, that whole montage video that everybody always puts together. But the other thing that they're doing is drafting contingency plans. If he leaves, if he wants to go here, what kind of sign and trade can we orchestrate? If he wants to go here, what kind of sign and trade can we orchestrate? If he leaves, walks flat out, what kind of other options can we get either to bridge us to a new future or someone who can literally be another building block towards that future like Aldridge was?
And the unfortunate thing is Portland had really put together a really nice piece, set of pieces around Aldridge and Lillard. I thought Robin Lopez, there was ridiculous stats, and when he's healthy and plays, their win percentage is extremely high. I love the trade for Aaron Aflalo. It just, when Wes Matthews went down, it's like, gosh, just cripples the team. They've had other injuries, of course, too. But this was a team that was, I thought, a legit contender when everyone was healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Wes Matthews, we talked about Cephalosha in the East. Wes Matthews is just as important to Portland on both ends of the floor.
More important.
More important offensively. I think defensively.
He was their best defender.
He was their best defender, but so was Cephalosha for the Hawks.
Okay.
And I think when you look at the Hawks' point differential when Cephalosha doesn't play, that was a red flag to me before the playoffs started. But yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. Wes Matthews is the same kind of player for the Blazers. He was one of the league leaders in three-pointers made.
That's what I was just about to say. I think he was leading the league in three-pointers made. Not Korver, not Curry, Wes Matthews.
Yeah. People don't respect his, or not respect, but people don't remember that when they talk about the great three-point shooters. He's one of the great three-point shooters, and he posts up, and he can run pick and roll, and he defends the toughest matchups on the perimeter, and he can switch with Batum on those tough matchups on the perimeter. And beyond all that is also the intangibles, the toughness. He is kind of their emotional leader, and all of those things I think they sorely missed. Robin Lopez, you're absolutely right. He's important to their success as well. In fact, George Sedano and I got in a huge argument on the podcast earlier this year when he was saying the Hawks were way better than Portland, and I said Portland's missing Robin Lopez, and George Sedano kind of laughed that off as if it were, not that big a deal for them to be missing that player. Yeah, George, we're getting all our licks in, George. We're getting them all in today.
Exactly. Talk about not having a chance to defend yourself. You've been throwing him under the bus all podcast. It does bring up a good point, though. And I was trying to explain this to a buddy the other night. The regular season is so different than the postseason. A team like the Hawks just shines throughout the course of the regular season. And we see it in all sports, really. It's just like a team comes in for one night, you half scout them, and then that fluidity that the Hawks have on offense just undresses you. But then you get to the postseason, everyone's a little bit more focused, everyone's more intense on film sessions, everything like that. You familiarize yourself with the opponent throughout the course of the series as well, and it's a little different. And that's why the Hawks haven't been as dominant. Now they're playing a better 8 seed than we've seen in other years past, but still, this Hawks team is not built for the postseason.
This is the most we've ever talked about the Eastern Conference, I think, all season long. Even when we're talking about the West, we keep going back east.
But you're right. Portland's a good team, good run. I agree that they're the best fit for Aldridge, but, we said it yesterday, he's at least going to be going on dates with other people. He's not necessarily ring shopping just yet.
He's playing the field. I get it.
He's sniffing around. All right. Good stuff. Appreciate the time as always. Always fun to chat hoops. Looking forward. You're coming out to Sports Center this week, though, right?
Thursday and Friday, and NBA tonight, I believe, on Thursday.
All right. Amin and his hate hard will be out there everywhere. I am Doug Kezirian. This is the latest edition of the NBA Lockdown Podcast. We'll be back tomorrow for more playoff coverage. Big game tonight, Spurs and Clips.
Thanks for listening to NBA Lockdown on ESPN Radio. For more great podcasts, check out the Pod Center page on ESPNradio.com.